All right, we are now continuing on in the series of the book reading Kennedy and Trump by Greg Fernandez Jr. We're about to page 92, page 93 right now. So we will continue on with that. If you check out the website, kennedyandtrump.com, that's kennedyandtrump.com. I have added a few things there. I have updated the way that the blogs look, the way that the blogs work. So you can always go there and you can see all of that as well. KennedyandTrump.com, KennedyandTrump.com. That's what it should be. Still waiting for the go ahead for the distribution to be in full effect, and then it will be available globally on Amazon, hopefully on Barnes & Noble and everywhere else. And hopefully get it into some libraries, into some local bookstores possibly. But right now you can buy the book for $15, and you can also just download it for free too. So why not read it, test it out? But I have reorganized how the blogs look and kind of numbered them. These are all blogs that are going to be a part of the sequel. So why read the sequel when you can just keep up to date with it all right here? So that's what I'm doing right now. That sequel will not be out until at least 2028, late 2028, more than likely. And it will follow everything else that happened. So be prepared for that. But getting back to what we are here for, which is the book, we are now at the top of page 93. So I'm going to continue reading from the top of page 93. All right, just want to check. Make sure the audio is okay. And then, of course, got a couple other books coming out very soon. Shadows of Light is the next one. That should be out very soon. And then I will have the COVID book, The Early Days of COVID-19. Working title is still The Invisible Enemy. The original title was the China virus, but I think it's a little bit more than that. I don't know. Who knows? We will see. Okay, reading on. Let's read on about the investigations. 11 days after the shooting, FBI Director Christopher Wray was not sure if President Trump's ear was hit by a bullet or shrapnel. He stated under oath during the Judicial Committee on Oversight of the Federal Bureau of Investigation hearing. Ooh, it's a long way to say FBI. With respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear. 2 days later, the FBI released a statement on the shooting, clarifying what we all knew. What struck former President Trump in the ear was a bullet, whether whole or fragmented into smaller pieces, fired from the deceased's rifle. So the FBI had to come out and do a little clarification. But that's how bad Christopher Wray's FBI was. Of course, now we got a great person in the FBI running the FBI, Kash Patel, and we have Dan Bongino, and they are doing a great job. And they've only just begun. The investigations are only going to lead to some criminal trials and hopefully some prosecutions. That'll be up to the judge and up to the jury, though. But give it a good try. The day after Wray's testimony, President Trump criticized the FBI for not knowing he was struck by a bullet. He stated, "The FBI never checked." President Trump released a short statement on Truth Social criticizing Wray's investigative skills or lack thereof. FBI Director Christopher Wray told Congress yesterday that he wasn't sure if I was hit by shrapnel, glass, or a bullet. The FBI never checked, but he was sure that crooked Joe Biden was physically and cognitively uneventful. Wrong. That's why he knows nothing about terrorists and other criminals pouring into our country at record levels. His only focus is destroying J6 patriots, raiding Mar-a-Lago, and saving radical left lunatics like the ones now in D.C. burning American flags and spray painting over our great national monuments with zero retribution. Now it was, unfortunately, a bullet, No, it was unfortunately a bullet that hit my ear, and it hit it hard and hit it hard. There was no glass. There was no shrapnel. Excuse me. The hospital called it a bullet wound to the ear. And that is what it was. No wonder the one storied FBI has lost the confidence of America. Tucker Carlson called Ray a liar and a criminal, and I hope he is reading this. Despite all the mistakes that were made, President Trump never stopped praising Secret Service agents who jumped on him and whisked him away from the crime scene. Oh boy, we're starting off early today. All right. Excuse me. Those people were brave, Trump said during an Atlanta, Georgia rally on August 3rd, 2024. They were running to me and the bullets were flying. The Secret Service, they were very brave. The bullets were going right over my head at that point. The first one was not a good situation. The distractions. On July 13th, there were over 100 calls for support, Secret Service Acting Director Ronald Rowe. Regarding the calls for support, it was a very hot day that day, said Rowe. There was a lot of not only EMS type of calls to address people, there were people that needed some other type of law enforcement assistance. This all seems like the standard operating procedure to Director Rowe. This happens candidly, happens a lot at outdoor rallies, especially on hot days. So there was a lot of radio traffic on the local net about, hey, I need an EMT here. So there was a lot of people that were needing assistance. It's unclear if those 100 calls were all before, during, or after the shooting. A reporter followed up on the 100 calls authorities got that day, asking how many specifically were suspicious people. Was this the only call, the eventual shooter that was a suspicious character? As I understand it now, Director Rowe responded, based on the information I have, there were other calls for suspicious individuals. This is very important here. Page 94, the bottom of page 94. He says there were other calls for suspicious individuals. Because one of the things that we have been looking at and will continue to look for and focus on is, did Crooks act alone? I don't believe he did. I think there's some evidence that will support that he did not act alone. It's impossible for me to think that he did. I try to think of what evidence would I actually need to come to the conclusion that Crooks did act on his own. And I think just based on the few things that we have found so far that I've documented in this book, and I'm sure there are others too, those things have to be discounted. They have to be disproved. They have to be debunked. One thing would be the multiple vehicles or the bike. Where did the bike come from? There was a report of a van. Was this van tied to Crooks? The fact that Crooks could not be in two different places at the same time. Who Crooks was on the phone with, the encrypted phone calls, the encrypted messages. How did this would be the weakest one would be, how would Crooks know that the police and the Secret Service were not flying drones that day? That's a tough one. If you could prove that one, you really have some solid evidence of a second person or somebody that was helping Crooks. There's also a report in one of the books that I found called Bulletproof. I believe it's called Bulletproof. And they talked about how when the FBI raided Crooks's parents' home, they took silverware. And I guess what the author's thought was they took silverware because Crooks was with somebody. He was being groomed. He was being led by somebody else. You find that person and you find more evidence of it. So that's what I think about when I think of what would I actually need to come to the conclusion that, yeah, there's definitely something more going on here. So, all right, enough of that. Okay. spilling coffee today too. So yeah, I'll just read that one more time. As I understand it now, Director Rowe responded, based on the information I have, there were other calls for suspicious individuals. Rowe quickly moved on to other questions, and Rowe quickly moved on to other questions, and this topic was not followed up on by other reporters. Even so, it's enough to know that there were other reports of suspicious people that day. This information coincides with the conversation between an unknown Secret Service agent and local law enforcement. According to Director Rowe, we had a Pennsylvania state trooper in our security room. They also had a unified command post that had some of the other agencies that were on site that day. Yet they all missed the suspicious person doing the worm on the nearby rooftop. Thankfully, many Trump supporters did see Crooks dry humping across the sloped roof, inching within 150 yards of President Trump. Those bystanders may have saved President Trump's life by letting Crooks know they saw him and were trying to alert authorities. Crooks may have been forced to shoot earlier than planned. It is plainly obvious to me that we didn't have access to certain information, not by anybody's fault, said Director Rowe. It's got to laugh at that. Not by anybody's fault. It just so happened that there was a sense of urgency that there might have been radio traffic that we missed. We have to do a better job of that. Yeah, that's an understatement. You definitely have to do a better job of that. And even the radio traffic, we go back to President Kennedy's murder and other things where you have distractions that are purposely there to take away the cops' view, to take away the first responders' view of take it off of Trump. In that case, back with Kennedy, take it off of President Kennedy and put it on to these people who need help, that are having seizures or that need some type of medical help. Now the focus becomes on them. The authorities are then somewhat distracted from what they are there to do, and it opens up more possibility for mistakes to happen, but not by anybody's fault. Secret Service did not have a drone on site, but Crooks apparently did. How is that possible with a command post, Secret Service personnel, local law enforcement, and Trump campaign team members all on site? Why didn't the Secret Service have a drone at the rally? Is it because they didn't think one was necessary? Is it because they couldn't afford one or didn't have one available at the time? Do they ever have drones at these types of outside events? Was it the standard operating procedure regarding the use of drones? What is the standard operating procedure regarding the use of drones at outdoor events? What we know for sure is that a drone was offered to the Secret Service for use that day. Director Rowe was aware that there was a request from a local agency to offer to fly a drone on that day. This is also part of the mission assurance review that I've asked to get some better insight on. Future outdoor rallies. If there are going to be future campaign rallies outside, said Director Rowe, it's going to be on us to make sure that we are providing all the assets and resources to make sure that those sites are indeed secure. Rowe admitted there was somebody who did in fact radio out that they had seen the individual with the weapon. What I can tell you is that that piece of information, that vital piece of information, and by no fault of anyone, it's a very stressful situation, it did not make it over. By no fault of anyone? There was an issue that the locals were working at 3 o'clock. There was an issue that the locals were working at the 3 o'clock. That's the bit of information that we had. So they knew there was an issue in the area where the shooter was later seen, but Secret Service was not aware of anything about a weapon, according to Rowe. During the Senate hearing, 18 days after the shooting, Senator Rand Paul shared his frustrations with the actions of the Secret Service on July 13th. There is no question that this was a monumental failure by the Secret Service. They had one job and they failed. Senator Paul sent his own investigation team to the crime scene to meet with local law enforcement and document the scene. One of the concerning things my team was told is that no one from Secret Service has talked to them since the shooting. I don't know how an investigation into what failed can be conducted without talking to the officers and agencies who were relied upon to do much of the work. Senator Paul reminded Director Rowe, local law enforcement officers were suspicious of the shooter 90 minutes in advance of the shooting. Paul asked, why were the AGR grounds and roof left unattended? Why was the AGR building, the shooter's perch, left outside the perimeter? Local law enforcement told my staff that they specifically flagged the vulnerability of the building to the Secret Service and were told that it would be taken care of. Clearly, those vulnerabilities were not addressed. Paul also questioned why Trump was allowed to go on stage. Senator Hawley wants the lead site agent fired, as well as anybody who had leadership on that day. During the Senate hearing, Director Rowe confirmed the lead site agent was still working events and conducting investigations. Senator Hawley then wondered, is she investigating herself? On August 7, 2024, Senator Ron Johnson told Fox News host Jesse Waters that while local law enforcement was cooperating with the Senate's investigation, the feds are really doing nothing. 2 weeks after the attack on President Trump, the Senate was still waiting to interview Secret Service agents on the ground that day. We're hopeful that next week it'll happen, but that's 2 weeks since SS Acting Director Rowe testified. Hopefully, the Senate investigation will be focused on investigating the investigations. Senator Johnson has been pushing for oversight on federal agencies for years, and he was not surprised federal agencies refused to cooperate in the Senate investigation. They just refuse to be accountable to the American public, Johnson said about federal investigators. They are the law. They believe they are above the law, and that's the way they're acting right now. The return. Anyone hoping President Trump was going to stop doing outdoor rallies was probably heartbroken on July 27, 2024, when President Trump posted this on Truth Social. I will continue to do outdoor rallies, and Secret Service has agreed to substantially step up their operation. They are very capable of doing so. No one can ever be allowed to stop or impede free speech or gathering. I chuckled, shook my head, and asked myself if Trump had a death wish when he posted his plan to return to Butler, Pennsylvania, where he was nearly killed on July 13, 2024. Trump is unafraid and will not be stopped. I will be going back to Butler, Pennsylvania, wrote Trump, for a big and beautiful rally honoring the soul of our beloved firefighting hero, Corey, and those brave patriots injured 2 weeks ago. What a day it will be. Fight, fight, fight. Stay tuned for details. We're going back to Butler, Trump concluded. You know that, right? We're going back to Butler. We got to go back. We got to go back to Butler. They were great. Trump stated he planned on going back in October of 2024. It's already being worked on. Trump planned to begin the speech with 3 words, as I was saying. And that will end part 2. I think we'll save the next one. We'll save part 3 for next time, where we move on to part 3, the Unity Party, and we get into the team, the matchup. This is not part of my book cover or anything, but pretty cool shirt I found on Amazon as well. Similar, mine is more smiling, has more people smiling, whereas this one is more, kind of the the angry version of Kennedy and Trump, I would say. Let me see if I can pull up mine for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's in a cycle. So obviously this is the one for me. Yeah, I like the more happy one. And Christian Coffins was able to just match up those their faces just to do it right. Did it very, very well right there. Faces completely matched up. It looks beautiful. It looks amazing. Couldn't be happier with it. Here's another one. Yeah, you can see that. Look at that. Look at that. Everything is lined up almost perfectly. Whereas this shirt, good shirt, cool shirt, but they're a little more angry, and the nose is a little bit off. You need to stretch out Kennedy a little bit more. If they stretch out Kennedy, it would have been cool. But it's a good shirt. So that will do it for now. God bless you all. Remember, Jesus Christ loves you, so do I. Until next time, God bless.